Hey guys, and welcome to Star Technology Progression Log 10, the double digits now. Huge. I hope you guys had a good winter break, or a good winter holidays. Mine was pretty good. I got a new desk. It's a few inches shorter than my other one, which is very nice. Uh, my last desk was like 31 inches tall. This desk is 28.3. It's also, interestingly, adjustable. It's an electric adjustable desk, which means it can actually go up to standing height. All I have to do is press a button on a controller, and it goes up. Unfortunately, you guys can't see that because that's not how recording my screen works. So you have to take my word for it, I guess. um, all right. So, um, I didn't get a super large amount of stuff done, I think, at least when compared to other weeks. One of the nice things about my new shorter desk is it makes writing a lot more comfortable on my wrists, which was the reason I wanted it. My desk was 31 inches was a few inches too high. So, uh, I've been able to write a lot this week, which has been very, very nice. I've been very, very happy to get back into that stuff. So, uh, that's been fantastic. All right. So, there are still some things over here that I've done. As you guys can see, I've done a little tiny bit of building, mostly just experimenting with how I want to do walkways, as well as maybe how I want to do the tower. I've started to realize that this base is already a little bit too wide. If we can't even see it on that map, see this map. Here we go. This base is already pretty large. It's spanning about 300 or 250 chunks, 350 chunks, something like that. It's really big. And that's gonna need to expand more up to where we need to go. Which means I need to, go expand up or down. And I think the answer is to expand up. Um, and if I want to do that, I need to make the central tower a little bit taller. I do have a little bit more room over here on this corner of the base, and maybe a little bit more room over here before I really actually have to start expanding directly upwards. But I am kind of sort of at the limits on the other side of the space of where I really want to go. And I don't really want to put anything over here because this is just too far. I'm trying to think about putting knackline over here in this little corner, having a little this bend and some stuff over here, and kind of sticking it in this corner here. Um, which does mean it's not on like the central spokes, like the main spokes. But that's fine. I can always have one of these paths come up and around here or something like that. Um, this space is kind of sprawled out over the place, and while I like that design, I feel like there are some failures with the machine pad design that I've started noticing, especially when it comes to on demand. Um, Speaking of on demand, there hasn't been that many changes. There's only been two major changes. As I got ME assemblers in here, and it didn't fit just two. I fit four in the space. They actually wall share really well. Um, Especially if you bring them out over the edge, the controllers out over the edge. I realized I could fit four in here, so I did because I am sick and tired of waiting on A2 processors and stuff. It makes things I don't want to be here. Hello. Um, it makes me I'm sick and tired of waiting on enemy components, right? Makes this super duper ultra fast, especially since I'm running it all at ZPM, and they all have ZPM capable. They're all capable of ZPM recipes, I should say, which is really awesome because it means I can do have 16. What I did last night is I made a couple of these 16 million mega crafting storages, and I already actually have um, three of them that have it. I'm over here. I also actually started using um, world anchors just because the base is so large. I actually have three crafters with the 16 mega crafting storages. We've started reaching crafts that are a little bit larger than the 64K. Mostly when it comes to producing a bunch of bulk drives, those are really large and have a lot of nested crafts, which makes them really heavy on the byte storage for crafting and stuff. So I was like, well, what does it cost to make a 16 mega? And the answer is a lot, obviously, but also not a lot. Like 4 million is an LUV recipe, which is not hard at all. We have LUV hatches, which makes that free and easy. LUV circuits, only one LUV circuit per, and that's quantum, which is like I wouldn't call it basically free, but it's really not that expensive. Um, Like they are expensive. The most expense here when it came to these crafting storages was really just time. None of these things, none of the components that go into this is particularly expensive. It still is expensive. Don't get me wrong. Like 16 mega, this is actually why I did ZPM. And like the mainframe is a little bit time consuming, but the mainframe isn't like that expensive either. Like none of this stuff is that's the thing. We're so fucking loaded. Like if you come over here, like we're so loaded on basically every material that I have access to. Like even like netherite, which is the most recent material line that I've set up, I'm still loaded as fuck. Like that's 4600 pure netherite dust. I think ancient or debris dust. We have a few thousand of that, 2000. That's as much as I keep. Like all the material lines that I have set up, we're loaded. So like it's expensive and as in it takes a lot of materials to make. Let's see if I can. It'll pull up the crafting for 16 mega. We can pull up the crafting tree. Like this is huge. Like this is massive. This is an absolute monstrous amount of materials. Uh, if we come down here, it's 27,000 fine red alloy wire. 200 buckets of over 200, 250 buckets worth of soldering alloy. 120 buckets of liquid sky steel, right? 2,300 ULV circuits. Like, this is a lot of stuff. Like, a lot of stuff. But it's also like but it's just not really expensive like what it takes a lot of, we have a lot of. So I don't really mind like just puking these things up, especially since how good they are. Like we won't really need to upgrade those probably ever. It's hard to say exactly how large some of those crafts can get, but 16 million bytes is a ridiculously large processor. Like, come on, this isn't GT&H. I'm not on demanding from every possible step. Uh, and some of those steps are done in large batches at a time, which I don't know how that affects byte cost. I think byte cost is, I don't know if it's based on the number of items or if it's based on the number of operations. I'm pretty sure it's number of items, but I don't really know, actually. Um, but like 16 million is like fucking ginormous. It's a lot. And I think by the time we do actually have to, upgrade them, like we can hammer out 40 million of them. Crafting storage, 40 million, like 256K, 256 millions. Like, holy moly, that would be a lot. Anyway, so On Demand is in a really good spot, and I'm happy to have finished the ME assemblers. They're so nice. I want to upgrade more of the processors with better co-processors because right now we just have the 64X, which are pretty good, but we can go better. We can go all the way up to, I think, 512K. Oh, 1 million. Yes, we can go up to all the way to 1 million, which I'm sure would be ludicrously expensive. But again, I think everything that would go into it, like we could take a look at it, like that's crafting storages. Like this is just yeah, where's my 1 million, right? That's UHV circuits, which we can't do. That's UV circuits, what we can't do. This is ZPM circuits in a ZPM recipe, so we can make 64K crafting co-processing units. This is something we can do right now. Oh, okay. Well, not the neck alloy. Um, so the one below? Yeah, we can do this right now. And neckline is the next thing I have to do to really actually like that's my next task, effectively. Um, and once I have that, then I can do 64K. So this is we can't do this right now, but we can do this after I do the next thing. So very soon, right? So and this ME assembler is fucking awesome. So what I mentioned is I'm not really happy with the machine pad layout. Is it looks kind of janky. I feel like this is something that should have its own spot that's been curtailed for it and make it look nice and stuff. And it doesn't really have that. And that's just a failure of the machine pads themselves. As in, because they're so versatile and allow me to plank any machine there that I want, it means none of the machines really look like they have a spot. It doesn't help that I haven't really done any decorative work over here either, but it does look kind of gross, and I'm not really sure if there's a way for me to fix this without just obviously I'd have to just tear it all up at some point and rebuild it. And as you notice, we have no space over here except for the tree farm. But I think the tree farm can go. There are other ways for me to get wood. I can actually use mystical agriculture for that, and we don't really consume all that much wood anyway at this stage. We use it mostly for charcoal byproducts, so that's like the only use for it. And mystical agriculture could do both oak wood, which we use for processing and stuff, like charcoal and like charcoal byproducts I just mentioned, as well as mangrove wood, which I use for building, obviously. Like wood essence, we can just essence burn for 32 logs. Like this is a pretty good. We get a lot of the stuff too, and it wouldn't be hard to add more if I really, really need it. So, um, yeah, right? So I could tear out this farm over here, and I'd have a little bit of extra space, and then maybe I could move the ME assemblers into a nicer spot that would be a little bit more curtailed for them, as well as moving a few more of these other machines into it, preparing a space for, say, something like the RHF, maybe, or maybe recycling some of the space for the RHF, which could be a little bit more customized for it, rather than something that was just, there's going to be a bunch of machines here, and I don't know what's going to be here. Um, I do think this was a necessary stage of on demand, as in I didn't when I originally built and needed on demand, I didn't have the time or resources to make something that was set for every machine, especially since I didn't know exactly how many machines of every type I was gonna need. Um, as well as we were never gonna stick with the single blocks forever, so there wasn't really a point in planning out for single blocks, and I think planning out for the multi blocks would have been a little bit hasty, perhaps. Um, Not really sure though. On demand hasn't seen over any changes over there, but over here I redid the vacuum freezers. As you guys noticed over there, they were missing. That's because the four I had were super duper slow, and also two of them didn't work for hot ingot recipes. The way I set it up was bad and stupid, and I hated it. Um, I could have just duplicated some recipes and plonked them on the other one, but I just never got around to it because pretty much when it started being too slow because two of them weren't hooked up properly, I was just like, okay, uh, adding two more is not going to fix the problem because it's slow in the molten stuff too, and it was using all four for those. So I just needed more, and I made a lot more. This is 22 vacuum freezers in total. All of them are running at 1 amp LUV. I didn't really want to run 22 of them at UV speeds. I think that would have been a little bit ridiculous. Um, so I was just like, LUV is good enough. I don't have any ZPM vacuum freezer recipes that I need to worry about at this stage. So I was like, fuck it. Vacuum freezers, I can live at LUV, especially since there's so many of them. They don't really need to be run at UV speeds anyway. And none of their recipes are particularly long to begin with. It's like, it just needed more of them so they could do a bunch of things at once, really. Um, so yeah, it's fantastic over here. It's still got that same subnet stalking bus loadout that I have, and all I have is just I have an item storage here, and I just gave it one cast, and all of the stalking buses, which will also pull hot ingots, also see the same cast, so all of them can use the same cast at once, which is really funny. I didn't know if it was gonna work like that, and it totally does. It's really hilarious. I love it. Um, I also upgraded some of these ABSs over here to all of them are running at UV now. Um, they still can only do ZPM recipes because I don't have ZPM energy hatches yet. That's a post-fusion thing, I believe. It's at the very least is post neckline. line. Let's see, ZPM. I haven't really looked at what the ZPM energy hatch really needs. Oh, it's also post research station. UHPIC chip, and this is that's not bad. Liquid Naquita though, yeah, it's post neckline for sure. I don't think this is. I don't think this requires fusion. No, it doesn't. Wait, actually, no, it does. It requires fusion for the coil, the voltage coil. Anyway, so like I said, getting neckline is the next thing I have to do. Uh, Before I can really start making some big progress. Coming over here to on demand, there is a small problem, and when it comes to one of these assemblers, specifically it's assembler with a bunch of different circuits, I've come to the realization that because they all have individual hatches, sometimes these hatch recipes conflict and they get stuck, which is like I'll get things that like in one hatch that are doing recipes in another that I don't want, and it causes the whole thing to make a recipe that I don't want and then lock up. And it's I have to clear out all the items and fluids, which is what all these terminals are here for, to make it easier, so I don't have to run it over to like an IO port or something. Um, which means that I'm just gonna probably uh, re-encode virtually all of these recipes to use the dynamic one. Oh, there's actually something I did want to use over here. Output bus. One of the downtimes I've had with the assembler is actually just how long it takes for the output bus to finally output, because they have a delay of a few seconds in order to make them more lag efficient. But I don't really care about the lag efficiency on this one single one, on this single multi-block. With the output bus and the interface, it's almost instant. So I'm just gonna go ahead and swap that out, and hopefully that'll help with some of the downtime I've had. As for this one, I just need to rebuild and rework how I do recipes on this other assembler. Um, it's really annoying, and I'm really not happy about doing it. Most of the time, it's fine. It's only in a couple of instances where I order a bunch of different crafts at once. Um, so I'm not exactly sure, and it is. I mean, it is nice having like a few dedicated circuits because it makes it easier. Like where's four? I don't know where circuit four is. It's somewhere over here. Maybe it's down here. Is it over here? No. Oh, you know what? I bet it's down here. Yeah. Having like a dedicated circuit number is really nice. But at the other, because it means I can have it with this specific pattern. I can go, okay, that one, I can go. You could feel free to dump as much stuff as in it as you need. Like you don't have to worry about blocking mode on it because you're never gonna get. If I give it tungsten steel rods and then I don't know, like steel rods, it's never gonna conflict those. Um, which is nice. Uh, with dynamic, that's not necessarily the case because I'd be worried about other rod recipes maybe, and those getting conflicted with other recipes instead. Maybe I'm trying to make something else and it wants to make motors, but it makes motors by accident. I don't know. Um, I would just be worried about circuit conflicts for that. So that would be a little bit annoying, I think. I might just add another assembler over here and use that one for a couple of circuits. Things like circuit 4, and circuit 6, uh, circuit 8. Things that I know that won't conflict with anything, and things that I'd be fine with dumping a bunch of other crap into. Um, but for something that uses at least things that don't use fluids specifically, crafts that would never use a fluid, like 4, 6, and 8 never use fluids. So there's no, I don't need to separate those out into another. Those don't need to be separated out into other assemblers. Whereas if other recipes require liquids, or and fluids, and or I guess and or fluids, it would it could conflict. It was really annoying. I think I was accidentally coding cable when I didn't want to. I think that was the recipe I was having, the problem I was having. I'm not exactly sure. Uh, anyway, so something to solve. Everything else here is fine though, and obviously because I have the ME assembler, I just pulled out all the pattern providers on these other ME assemblers. I haven't actually like removed the single blocks in here because I just don't care. Um, I haven't really done too much stuff in here besides that. Let's see, what else have I done? Ah, I know. We'll go to ore production. Ore production has seen some has not only has it seen upgrades, it's been almost completely rebuilt, or at least large portions of it have. Um, I stripped out the individual control networks. It turned out they really just weren't all that helpful. Honestly, everything that could have been done on a control network could have just been done on the main network, just because of I don't really. So the control networks that I was building ore production a little bit like ore processing, where I had one control network that was supposed to guide items through all of it and then dump them into individual subnets that would do the processing, which would then dump it back into the control network and et cetera, et cetera. Um, but the only two control networks I had were the one for the cutter and the one for the rock filtrator. But the rock filtrator was basically just the control network that could only see like 3 items, which was like weird. Uh, and that one just dumped directly into the Cutter subnet, which just used the stocking input bus, right? Um, but with the Cutter, there's only like a certain number of items that it's ever going to get. And we know what those items are, and there's really not that many of them. Like if we look here at the stocking input bus, we have like 3, 6, 12, 3, 6, 9, 12, 13 items, right? So there's 13 items, so this would fit in a stocking bus on its own. So that's just what I did. Stocking buses, when they're not on automatic item pulling, whatever item you give them, they will pull all of that item from the network. So because we don't need to be a little bit more dynamic about how we're doing things, because with ore processing there's like dozens and dozens of items you might want to feed it, and you can't put that many hatches on them. We can just use individual stocking buses for this. So it didn't need to be on a subnet. It really, really didn't need to be on a subnet. Because the original design was me just filtering them into an interface anyway, which was effectively the same thing but worse. So I ripped out the control network because what finally made me realize I didn't need any of the control networks was when I rebuilt these rock sifters. I moved from rock filtrators to rock sifters, which are the parallelized version of the LV rock sifter, the rock filtrators. They can use parallel hatches and stuff, so they're just better. Um, they're also larger, obviously, way larger. The other ones were 3x3 and I don't know 5 blocks tall. These ones are 7x7 and a lot of blocks tall. 7 blocks tall, something like that. Anyway, um, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 7 blocks tall. Um, so these, and then when I rebuilt these, because they're also not where the cobbleworks were, because I'll talk about that in a second. I had just instinctively thrown them on the white net, the main net here, and then I realized, oh, it works. It like I just had to filter some stuff like I normally would have done, and it just worked, dumping them into the main net, and it wasn't a problem. And that was like, oh, I don't actually need this. I don't. These control networks are worthless. Just added complexity for no particular reason. So it got removed. Um, and for why the cobbleworks are gone is Ada 3 actually added these infinity crushed uh, block cells. Infinite dust, infinite gravel, infinite sand, and infinite crushed blackstone. Which I am really not a fan of. I'm gonna be honest. I feel like I guess I have an idea of why they did it, and that the cobbleworks were basically just the same thing with extra steps. They just required a tiny amount of power and a minuscule, ignorable amount of lava and water slash witch water. So I mean, the cobbleworks were already infinite, effectively. They produced a lot of blocks extremely quickly with almost no inputs, both power-wise and the resource, like, fluid-wise. They were effectively the same thing as an infinite cell. But they were also a fun multi-block to build. And I feel like making that multi-block absolutely worthless in the face of an infinite cell really isn't like fun. I think it's really boring. I still switch to them anyway, just because they are just flat out better. And as cool as the multi blocks were, and it was cool to have them, I wasn't gonna, you know, be as inefficient as that was. Like the drives are just infinitely better. They don't require anything but the power it takes to run an AE system, which we already have over here, and is minuscule compared to the power it would take to run a Cobbleworks, even one. Um, so it's like sigh, pretty much. I was like, huh, okay, I guess. Like if we take a look at like the drive, like let's take a look at the infinite gravel drive, like the infinite cell. Oh, it'd be infinity. If we take a look at like the Infinity Gravel Cell, it's an Infinity Cobble Cell with an LUV piston, an LUV conveyor module, 2 double netherite plates, and then 2 pure nether quartz gears. This is cheaper than the actual Cobbleworks control module, which requires 4 gears, I think. Yeah, this requires 4 new pure netherite gears. It doesn't require the conveyor belt or the motor, but who cares about those? Like once you need assembly line for this stuff anyway. Oh. I I guess you don't need it for this version. I thought you needed assembly line for something in here. I guess not. So the only difference here is that you don't need assembly line for the Cobbleworks module, versus you need assembly line for the Infinity cells. But like by the time you can get pure netherite gears, assembly line really isn't all that far off anyway. Like Come on. And pure netherite is way more expensive than the conveyor belt and the piston, because the piston is just HSSG or HSSE actually. Wait, no, it's HSSS, I believe. Yeah, HSSS, which is just like not expensive. Like we take molten HSS is like radium, osmium, HSSG, and that's it. Like I guess like the osmium and iridium are like kind of expensive, but once you have Flatline up, not really. And once you feed it a lot of resources, it's really not that much. Especially if you're how many ingots you get out of it. That's what 9. So like who cares? Um, I'd spend like a stack of iridium and osmium to save on the activate on pure netherite. That shit's annoying. Um, So I don't know. I don't really like it all that much, but it's a lot better and it saves me a lot of space as well as the casings, which can get reused in a couple of the other multi blocks and stuff that are required for ore production. So in the end, they got ripped out, and it is what it is. So I put the rock sifters here to save space. The cutters are over here because I'm not using the control modules, and the only thing that was over here were the mixers anyway. And I have one multi-block mixer here, which is perfect overclock, and room for 3 more. That's all for drilling fluid. I don't ever think I'll use that much drilling fluid, but the space is here for that. I have room for 7 cutters over here. No wait, 9 I believe. 2, 4, 6, 8, yeah, 9. I have room for 9 cutters over here, and I think that'll be more than enough, especially if I can just these are on, especially with all the stocking and buses and parallel and overclock. I don't ever see needing more than 9 cutters, and if I do, I'll just stack them vertically. I guess I don't know. Um, it really wouldn't be that big of a deal. So, like, I mean, I guess it's just like sigh. I guess it's nice having the extra space. I think it'll be enough. I'm not really too concerned about it. I don't ever think I'll need too many of these rock filtrators, and while they are fast, the cutters are faster. They're way faster. So, as long as I keep them with the same parallel hatch and at the same overclocker, or even like a lower overclock than the cutters, it'll be fine. It'll never be a problem. Over here, I think I just swapped the parallel hatches on these sieves. Now we get an absolute monstrous amount of diamonds. It's really quite insane how much stuff we get from these sifters. That's ludicrous. I don't know if I'll need more than these for quite a while. I left plenty of space for them. The ore production multi blocks are fucking insane. Like for example, over here I built an ore extract, an ore, not a void, void excavator. This void excavator is just at IV with a 4x parahatch, and this thing is fucking insane. I cannot get across to you how much faster that is than the void uh, extractors, the first tier. Like obviously it's running at a higher voltage. I get that, but it's just like insane how good it is. It has pushed my ore processing to the limit. Like actually, like straight up, all the overhead I had on ore processing is more or less gone. I had to add a bunch more. I had to actually add more electrolyzers and more centrifuges. I haven't needed to add anything else, but I might need to add a few more washers as well, because those are those are pretty busy, as well as adding some chemical baths for tungsten. Those are pretty busy as well. I added a few more autoclaves, but that's because I added 4 more large fractioning distilleries for molten ore. I don't know what possessed me to think that I would only ever need one and only build one over here. Insanity, probably. So I have 4, and I left room for a whole row of them. Uh, I know I have plenty of space over here because netherite line will get torn out eventually, and I had planned for Knack line to be over here, and it's not going to be over here. So I have plenty of space over here. The one downside is I keep moving the packer, so the packer isn't here anymore, and I actually have nothing doing packing right now. I just need to actually build the frickin' multi-block. The problem is I just had an HV single block that I just kept moving around every time I needed to put something else because it was pretty much just using wireless and stuff. I just need to put down the multi-block and just forget about it. Probably put it like over here or something. I don't know. The Packard multi-block isn't that large. Like it's 3 by 3 by 7, 3 by 3 by 6. So like I can stick it like right here and it'll be fine. Um, but yeah, Platline. Oh, I also added more sifters. I added a bunch more sifters. I had one before. It was running off an interface, and it literally hadn't been touched since it got set up originally. But sifting was one of the bottlenecks I was having for other resources and stuff. Most of them were worthless, but Certus Quartz was. I really wanted to get that out of the way. Um, I don't know if I'm. Oh, I guess I am sifting diamonds as well, but I don't really need to process the raw diamonds that I get from the geodes because I have the sand sifter instead. um, so, or I guess it's sand or dust. I think it's sand. Anyway, so I have a bunch over here, and they're all overclocked a little bit. No, they're still at HP actually. Never mind. I didn't really feel like these were worth making EV energy hatches for, if I'm being honest. I could throw 4 amp HV energy hatches on here and recycle them. I just used HV because I have a ton of HV energy hatches because as they've been reused around pulled out of around the base and slowly getting replaced with higher tier ones, that means I had a fuckload of them left behind. So I just went ahead and reused them. I don't really think it's that big of a problem. It looks like it's more than fast enough. It's been eating up the stockpile that I've had, which is good. So it'll probably stay here for a little while longer. I won't touch this for a while again. Um, I know I said no more ore processing upgrades, but I like ore processing too much, and I really wanted to make sure that I wasn't under. Well, after I upgraded ore production, there were a few bottlenecks. There weren't too many, and they didn't take too long to fix, so I did want to fix them. Ore fractioning or distilling the molten ore is no longer the bottleneck, which is nice. It's just chewing through the stockpile that I had, and it had like a 40,000 bucket stockpile. So once it's done chewing through that, what I'll have is overbuilt for a while. Now the bottleneck is actually just making it, um, which is slow, and I can just throw a higher tier energy hatch on that. I might need to rebuild. Honestly, I don't know what possessed me to think that this one row would be enough for a bunch of different things. It's fine for Flatline. It's not fine for the other things. uh, this is gonna need a bunch more mixers and stuff, and a bunch of them are gonna have to be doing molten ore and stuff. Uh, I did actually come over here and I did upgrade Indium. This was running at EV before and it was super duper ultra slow. It was taking 12 seconds and I was annoying. Um, so it's no longer annoying. It's pretty fast. I don't know what I'm doing over here. Oh, none of these things are doing anything. And on the left side over here, this one's doing pitch blend, which we've already processed all the pitch blend. Uh, I need to upgrade molten ore mixture probably at some point and add another mixer over here. I don't really know. This one's doing indium mixture, but I'm not making purified sphalerite because I don't have a gravel sifter. Because that would produce even more ore, and I am a firm believer that I would not be able to handle that amount of ore. If I do ever build it, it won't get a parallel hatch just because I can't handle that much. Um, I'm gonna have to make the 64x para hatches if I want to be able to add a bunch more ore production, and it's actually crazy how powerful ore production is. But it's so much more powerful than any of the ore processing machines. It's so much it's not even funny. Um, just a void extractor alone is pushing this ore processing system to the limit. So, I think it doesn't help that I have also a bunch of fractioning distilleries and lots of autoclaves. So I'm getting absolutely monstrous amount of ore from that as well. Um, which is probably the big thing now that I think about it. But the void excavator is not slow. So that is also a very large supply of ore, as well as the rock filtrator, which is also a large supply of ore. Um, Also, I'm running Platlines through the centrifuges, which is why they're so busy all the time. Because I'm getting so much ore of different types, it means I'm also getting a lot of Platline precursors, and that's pretty slow. I want to mention that I did throw some higher tier energy hatches somewhere over here, I think. No, wait, I did that last time. Yeah. So Platline is not was never a bottleneck. Well, at least not for a while. Nothing over here has seen any changes, but thorium is still going up. Slowly, but it is going up, which is a little bit crazy. Um, anyway, coming back over here to Nether Stars, since this got an upgrade, there's one thing I noticed that once I was able to actually make like the different elemental rods, like the mob drop rods, like for example, the basalts. Once I was able to make this, the only change that really needed to happen over here, on specifically as long as I'm doing. Okay, So there's different recipes for nether stars, right? To make, well, I should say to make the final nether star is the same every time. You need to implode an impure nether star, which comes from forming press, lightning, ice, fire, and earth shards. Um, yeah, lightning, ice, fire, and earth. Uh, these things can are where the difference comes. Originally, you can make them with the lightning charge. This is the worst recipe. It's very slow and it has the worst chance. The lightning shard is only a 20% chance at EV tier. And it doesn't go up. Um, as you can actually eventually recycle, you can loop your nether stars back into it. So if we take energized nether star shards, we get a 50% chance at one and a 45% chance at a second one. Energized nether stars just require you to polarize just a regular nether star, which you have to forge hammer a complete nether star, right? So we can also eventually then go up another one, which requires a tempered start nether star shard. This is at ZPM and requires nether tempered liquid blaze. This guarantees you get 3 shards and you have a 20% chance at a fourth. We also have, I guess actually the LUV tier would be the energized nether star. That's out of order. Anyway, um, the energized nether star we already have. Let's see, you get that gives you a guaranteed one, and a 25% chance at a second one. But this one takes energized liquid blaze, which is requires a heat chamber, which is gated to UV apparently. um. Anyway, looking back at the shards, we have yeah. So that's all the different recipes, right? So I could technically go up a tier. It wouldn't really be all that bad. I just don't really feel like doing that right now. Honestly, I wasn't really interested in the efficiency gains by it because we're growing pretty much all of the resources that go into it. Because the most expensive part of Nether Stars by far originally was just making the blaze powder from the chemical reactor, the powders from the chemical reactor, which was super slow and super expensive and really annoying. By growing the elemental shards, we basically reduce the cost to gunpowder, which is saltpeter, sulfur, and carbon dust. I don't even know if we're using carbon dust. We might be using charcoal dust. No, we're probably using carbon dust because it's faster. Um, so looking at the charges, it's just and then it's just coal dust on top of that, right? So it's coal dust, gunpowder, or sulfur, gunpowder, or okay, sorry, carbon dust, coal dust, carbon dust, saltpeter, sulfur, and that's it. Like that's the cost. Well, also, coming from mystical agriculture, but that stuff is effectively free at this stage. Um, Once it was set up, it runs very, very cheaply. Um, so I didn't really see the need in the efficiency gains at this stage. I really wasn't interested in coming over here and tearing all this out and rebuilding it. So the only change was the LCRs got replaced with macerators to grind down the various elemental rods. And the macerators are super duper ultra turbo fast. They like one tick everything, and they don't really consume all that much. The mixers aren't really the bottleneck either. It's just the autoclaves. Um, and I believe actually it's the extractors over here. So these might just get like upvolted to like HV, and that will be fine. Um, that's if I really needed more nether stars, and the answer is I don't. This has been running for quite a while in the background, and I have 1,800 nether stars, and I just don't use that many of them at this stage. Probably at a later date I will, but like uh, EV field generators are pretty rare. Quantum stars, we don't use too many of those. They do get used pretty heavily in like super late game. Let's see. This requires CPM. Not really. Quantum stars are never really used in large amounts. Maybe in Draconic Fusion you use 8, but that's UHV. Component synthesis uses 48 at a time, 96 at a time, 96, 96. But this is all like super ultra turbo late game. UIV, this is like Ancient Gate. This is like this is just before Maxwell kind of thing, right? And even then, it's just really not that much. And by that point, I'd probably just overclock the extractors and the autoclaves. I really do not see a reason to loop Nether Stars. I know it's way, way better, but I just don't care. Honestly, I really don't care. Um, Maybe it'll become a problem. but I'm pretty sure that problem can just be solved with throwing power at the problem and replacing a few multi-blocks. I really do not feel like the problem is worth a structural rebuild using a Nether Star loop. Maybe if you were broke as fuck and didn't want to do mystical agriculture in the slightest, you would want to do that. But I have mystical agriculture, so I don't care. Um, Mystical agriculture, however, has not seen any changes. It just runs on its own. I don't really care about it. I wish I could have it autocraft the pitch blend a little bit better. Unfortunately, it doesn't loop particularly fast. It looks like it does right now. Um, the problem is the reason why it doesn't loop for some things is it doesn't burn the basalt shards in the so in order for this loop to happen, we essence burn basalt shards into here. We can see how these are made. We burn Basal's essence with 12 crown 4 Li into 12 Basal shards and 12 crown 4. 12 crown 4 requires lithium perchlorate to be recycled back into 12 crown 4 Li. This also gives us sodium perchlorate dust. So lithium perchlorate comes from mixing 5 crown 5 15 crown 5 with the sodium perchlorate dust that comes from mixing 12 crown 4 Na, making that. This gives us 15 crown 5 Na and lithium perchlorate. So we do need to burn extra 15 crown 5 Na in order to make the other one. This we get by burning uranium essence for raw pitch blend. The problem is pitch blend does not burn automatically right now. The way I had this set up is doesn't work. Originally, I had a requester chest for raw pitch blend, and it would just dump whatever pitch blend it would have in a storage bus that would get dumped into ore processing. The problem is it never really does that craft. Um, like I have a bunch of like here we go. We'll burn a bunch of that stuff. It doesn't do that craft from the requester, and I'm not exactly sure why. I guess because I actually don't know because it can't see it. It's not in the system. It just won't do the burning. I think the way I'm gonna have to do it if I want to burn it automatically is either just have it get dumped into essence burner or something automatically at a certain rate, or I don't know, use like a timer and an export, like I use like a level emitter and then like a crafting card and an exporter. It's to just dump it into the mainnet to get moved where it needs to go. Um, but it's not really a problem because nether stars still happen over time. And maybe eventually I'll need to come over here and fix stuff, but for now we have so much stuff that I just don't care. If it ever becomes a problem, by the time I notice, I don't know. Uh, Whatever. Um, so coming back over here, I started stacking some more LCRs, or at least I planned out where how I would stack LCRs. It is gonna get a little cramped over here, but it should be fine. I'll be able to make it work. It won't be too cramped. Um, it should be fine. I think it'll be good. Um, I'm hoping this will be enough LCRs for a while. I know it won't. I'll probably will be able to augment passive LCRs with on-demand ones for certain steps. Um, like I might pull out a few steps of boards over here. Like I'm making the actual printed boards. I might pull those out and just do those on demand instead. I don't know. Because right now with how powerful the reason why they were passive is because my on demand sucked ass when I set this up. And now it doesn't suck ass. It's really fast. Like if I want to make plastic boards, I actually had to set up plastic boards on demand because I needed so many for the 16 megas that the passive was really crazy. So I can produce like 512 at a time. And the slowest part here, I believe, is the benders because all the LCRs I think are overclocked to UV. Or if they're not, well, they're perfect overclocks, and I could overclock them to UV, and they would do subtick parallels. So, um, and there's four of them, and so I'm not really concerned about the on-demand LCRs being slow over here. Um, I'm pretty sure out of all of this, it's going to be the benders making the foil that is going to be the slowest by far. Um, and every now and then it looks like it's getting stopped up by the requester. Um, I think it might be time to switch to the multi-blocks maybe, and then just use the 16-inch para hatches. I think if I throw enough power at the problem, they would be better. I think I'd have to throw a fuckload of power at the problem, but I am willing to throw a fuckload of power at the problem. I am willing to hit these things with UV speeds. And I think at that point they might be better. I don't actually know for sure, but at the very least, um, it would be easy to upgrade them immediately to the 64X hatches as soon as I got them. I don't know how far away. I think the 64X is just okay. That didn't work. Um, Parallel control hatch. Oh, here it's nope. It's still doing the bending. Parallel control hatch. Where are you? Uh, Here we are. Ultimate. This is UV and ZPM emitters. Uh, this is post fusion. HSSE, ZPM, research station. I can do the craft itself. I don't think the research station is not anything particularly interesting. Well, in terms of resources required. Are you working on yet? Uh, oh, I see. It only made the. Yeah, it's done. So I spent more time doing the bender than the board itself, which is my point here. Um, so if I upgrade the benders so they're much faster, just by I don't know, maybe I don't even know how I would fit them all in. Or at the very least, if I parallelize these things better, because they're rather than on dynamic, so I can use both. They're on an individual circuit. Like this one is 10, and then this one is 1, and um, or let's see, actually. I could probably parallelize them better by putting the buses in the center instead, and doing distinct buses and stuff. Um, I obviously didn't do that. I was an idiot and shared the output bus rather than the input buses because I'm stupid. Um, these things need to be reworked, as well as the wire mills as well. These things were super slow, and I found out they're super slow after I had to like, oh wow, this is gonna take 50,000 fine alloy, red fine alloy wire. Um, and it was just like, oh my god, it's so slow. So I spent so much time waiting for wire, and I don't have to wait on anything else. The EMIA, this thing is way too fast compared to everything else, which is fine because it means I won't have to upgrade the EMIA assembler. Um, so the 64X hatches really aren't too bad. They're not too far away. ZPM, uh, this is technically doable once I actually, oh, Nequata alloy frame, Nequata alloy rod, Nequata alloy ingot. Requires molten Aquata alloy, which is just Nackline. Just Nackline. Um, I would need Naquata coils for this as well. Uh, but that's part of Nackline. So once again, Nackline's the next project I have to do. So it looks like Nackline and Research Station is probably what's limiting me to these parallel hatches. In terms of the crystal processors, I mean, that's not bad either. These things are not bad. It's just getting the crystal processors to begin with that would be a little bit annoying. Um, Crystal CPUs. This is just engraved crystal chips. Olivine or emerald. That's not bad. Helium. We have raw crystal chips. This would be. I'd have to do this with. Probably just go gambling with. I guess it'd have to be europium, so this might be post fusion. I don't know what bacterial sludge is. This requires raw crystal chips, so this is limited to post-fusion, unfortunately. That's annoying. But it is what it is. So fusion's pretty important as well. We can actually do fusion, I think. I think the fusion reactor is well within reach. This is Mark 1. Requires NDM. We can do that wire, no problem. The scanner is fine. The circuits are fine. UHPIC chips. No, oh, wait, no. This is. Oh, this requires NAC line. Yeah, though. Okay, so once I get NAC line, I can turn around and do fusion, and I don't think anything else is gonna be too bad. I think all this stuff is just NAC line. Yeah. Everything else is neckline. Plutonium plates, that's just smelting plutonium-241, which I have ridiculous amounts of. How much do I have? 1.8 million. I've been throwing bulk drives everywhere because I have the ME assembler, which makes it super duper fast to make bulks in comparison to what it was before. So I've been puking up bulks for both ore processing as well as for other things as well. I was tired of voiding plutonium. I didn't want to void plutonium when I didn't have to. And it looks like my power storage is full, so I think I made some more flux storages last night, so I'm gonna have to go add those. Um, I've just been spamming the hell out of these flux storages. This has been, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to do flux storages. I think I can probably wait until ultimate batteries, maybe. Though I do kind of want to build a Lapatronic supercapacitor just because they're really cool. The problem with the Lapatronic supercapacitor is they technically have an output limit of, it can be really, really high, but they do eventually have an output limit. And the flux storages don't. If you just say bypass limit, then they just don't. It's really nice. Um, all right. I'm trying to think about. Oh, I know. I did get a question about ore processing, and about how it works. So I'd like to go ahead and explain that really quickly. I'll do my best to explain it in just a couple of minutes, since many of you who regularly watch these videos have already heard multiple times how ore processing works. Um, so how ore processing works is we have multiple different subnets, all chained to a control network. Control network here is RedNet. RedNet, all it does is it filters items that come into it from either outside from ore processing or internally from other machines after they finish a processing step. The only storages they do this by using filtered storage buses on other subnetworks. We'll take maceration subnetwork, BlueNet here, for example. We have storage buses over here that are filtered to things that I want macerated. Things like raw gold, raw ores, some gems that I don't give a fuck about, refined. I can use tag buses for this. I should probably come in here and swap out a bunch for tag buses. But in the end, I don't really care all that much because you filter an item once and then forget about it. And I set this up before I had access to tag buses anyway. But the idea is, so we have a storage bus here on a subnet with filtered items here, and this is the only place this item has been filtered amongst all of these other storage buses. There is one exception, and I will get to that in a moment. And then, so all of these items here get dumped into Maceration Net, which has its own storage that it can see here. So it has 464K drives here that it can pull from. And we can see here all the items that the network has. This is updating pretty quickly and getting pulled from pretty quickly. The next stage is on the machines themselves. These machines then use internal, or they use ME stocking input buses set to automatically pull all items from ME. So they will see, they update every so often, and they will see all the items that are in the storage, and they will automatically pull them for the macerator. This allows the macerator to pull every single item eventually that it gets passed to it, rather than having to filter them individually like I did with the rock filtration and cutters, right? They then have output buses that are attached to the control network, to RedNet. That means RedNet gets past the processed items. It'll get past things like dust or crushed or whatever, and those things will need to be filtered as well. And it looks like I accidentally don't have a couple of things that are filtered here. Things like stibnite dust, they will sit in the buses unless they get filtered, and cinnabar dust has to get filtered as well. So I'll just tag those and come back to that later. And actually, we can use them as an example. That's pretty good. So we have a few items here that haven't been filtered. That means they don't have a place in RedNet. RedNet doesn't know what to do with them, so they just stay there forever. So we can take a look and we can see what we want to do with them. We want to centrifuge stibnite dust. And I believe the only thing here we would want to do is we would want to centrifuge cinnabar, which is nice because I do need mercury. Okay, so we can go ahead and do that. We'll come over here to the centrifuge network, which is pink network here, and we will come down to this storage bus behind it, and we will just toss stibnite dust, and we will toss cinnabar dust in there, which means that it will get dumped straight into this network, which means that it's now being centrifuged. And as we can see stibnite is being centrifuged very quickly. Stibnite is being centrifuged into antimony and sulfur dust. Both of those things have been filtered into the final output network, or OrangeNet. Over here we can, I believe, here's antimony and sulfur is down over here somewhere. Down there. Orange network here is down below. Okay, hold on. Down below being seen by green network, which is main network. Green network can just extract anything from the final output net, and we are good to go. It can also dump so anything I want to insert into, say, OrangeNet, or into the rest of the processing system as a whole is provided to RedNet. RedNet controls the flow of all items in or processing. We have a P2P tunnel from fluid. This is how I pass fluids that need to be processed, things like molten ore mixture or mineral residue or whatever from any fluids that come from the void extractor. They get dumped directly into RedNet. There's no point in passing them through mainnet here. There's also a P2P for items as well, ores, gemstones, etc., whatever. And then we have a storage bus over here that's insert only high priority. This is for things that are byproducts of other processes around the base that I'd like to store here. This is things like rutile. I process rutile from ilmenite dust in the passive EBF area, and I want rutile dust to be stored here on the orange network because I have a bulk drive reserved for it. Magnesium chloride gets recycled here as well. It comes from processing titanium tetrachloride. It's a byproduct as part of smelting titanium ingots originally. Um, Uranium hexafluoride, that gets, I believe that's also a byproduct elsewhere, although that might be a legacy filter from when I was expecting to do uranium hexafluoride outside. Salt water, that's a byproduct from epoxy, and this gets processed in here. Salt water's only use is to be either making sodium hydroxide by electrolyzing it or centrifuging it for salt and water. I electrolyze it for sodium hydroxide. I don't really give a fuck about electrolyzing it for sodium hydroxide. Or actually, I don't care about centrifuging it for salt. I get salt from seawater, which is made from in-ore production. Ashes and salt. Ashes is a byproduct from making steel in an ABF. That's processed here as well as a centrifuge. And salt comes from epoxy as well, I believe. Raw pitch blende and log galena, those come from mystical agriculture. They get dumped directly here as well. So that is how ore processing works. As a quick overview, we basically use an upper control network, RedNet, to filter items into processing subnets. Those processing subnets have multi-blocks that use stocking input buses that will allow them to see every item that has been given to them. This allows all the machines to parallelize as much as they want. They can take as many as they want, as fast as they want, and then they output those items back into the control network to allow them to be refiltered to wherever they need to go, either for future processing steps or because they no longer need to be, they are the final output and no longer need to be processed. Um, the one exception to the no duplicates rule, whereas one item has one location, is stone dust. Stone dust is used in a couple of different places. It is used in autoclaving molten ore into the raw ore form, and it is also used in making recycling for molten ore mixture. Molten ore mixture comes from distilling, or molten ore mixture comes from centrifuging raw ore slurry. Um, and you can also make, but we want a lot of the good stuff. A lot of the good ores come from molten ore mixture, so we want more of this stuff. So this is used in either recycling metal mixture dust, which comes from molten ore mixture, gives us a bunch of different molten ores that we use the stone dust to electrolyze. We can also recycle it using more stone dust and lava back into molten ore mixture. That's a better use of molten ore or metal mixture dust. Metal mixture dust on its own, when centrifuged, is very, very slow to process, 50 seconds at EV. And it also doesn't really produce things we care much about. Everything here is very, very common. Ilmenite dust is probably the most valuable resource here, and that's 5% at EV, and this stuff is just not worth processing via a centrifuge. It's worth mixing back into your molten ore mixture. This requires stone dust. I want to make. I also don't want to have too much stone dust because that would just be really annoying to keep around. It wouldn't block things up because things can cache in the output buses, not quite infinitely, but quite a lot. But I still don't want that to overflow and block things up eventually. So how I do this is I have a priority on. I have one on overflow, so I have two drives, right? I have one in the autoclave and I have one in the ChemWork drive. That's the white network here. The one on the autoclave is higher priority. It inserts here, it's just priority 10. This does not affect any other item because all the other items can only go here anyway. This only affects stone dust. Stone dust is stored in a drive that has been filtered for stone dust. All drives on the autoclave network have been filtered for their specific item. There's only two items that go here anyway, nether quartz dust and stone dust. All the other ones are fluid drives. After the stone dust drive is full, it then goes to the next priority drive, which is a stone dust overflow destruction drive. This is in an ME chest because just needs to be higher priority, and this is on priority 10 as well, just so it's above the ME drive over here because this has unfiltered drives that are not overflow destruction, and I do not want to get these full of stone dust. So we have one exception to the one item, one subnet filter rule here. Everything else works on that as well. I don't really want to talk about netherite line. Netherite line is really bad and it shouldn't be over here anyway. Plat line works the same way. It has given a bunch of different fluids. They are passed to mainnet or to control network, other than that moves them where they need to go. So that is how ore processing works. I hope that was a good explanation for the person who asked. I'm also always willing to answer questions. This little red net over here, this little network terminal here is not control network. I probably should change that color. This is just a network that allows me to manage my drives. To see what I have here, I can just search really quickly to see if I have a drive for a resource. Like if I want to see if I have a vanadium dust drive, I do. I can just search by name. This is why I name my filtered drives generally. This is just so I can search them up if I feel like it. It also gives me a quick overview of what drives might be full because the extended drives have a second row behind the ones in front, and the section behind you cannot see from the front easily. You'd have to either open the inventory or check from the terminal here. Um, there we go. That's how it all works. I hope that was a good, quick explanation that taught you how ore processing works. This is my version of ore processing. You might not necessarily need something so complex or something so robust, depending on what you want to do. Like GregTech, like all things in GregTech, things are a trade-off based on the time you want to put into something, as well as how badly you think you need something. It's possible you don't think you need as many byproducts as this, and you're willing to just crunch everything down into a few generic steps along the way and just dump everything into that. That's totally valid if you want to do that, but that's just how I did mine. I got one more question, was how my LCRs work. You guys will notice that I have level emitters here, so that means everything gets dumped into mainnet, or they get dumped into drives here. Eventually, these drives are going to get pushed onto mainnet because I hate them here. All of these drives have been partitioned for one specific fluid, or in some cases, multiple specific fluids. I'm no longer doing it this way. How I am now doing it is every single chemical line gets its own drive on mainnet. Everything is going to get moved to mainnet, like I mentioned. Over here we have our another extended drive on higher priority. Let's see. Where do I have? Here we have PBI line, for instance. PBI line extended drive, or this fluid drive here, is partitioned for all the fluids that are required for polybenzimidazole plastic or rubber or whatever, right? So all the precursors as well as the final plastic itself. This is because one of the annoying things I was having with just the drives before was whenever I was adding a new chemical, I was pulling the drive out, filtering it in, and putting it back, and I was running out of space in some of those drives, even with equal partition, and it was causing some clogs, and it was also just really obnoxious. So by doing it this way instead, with every plastic getting its own line, every chemical line getting all its precursors in a single drive, it makes it really easy to store here, and that means I can use level emitters on the LCRs rather than using something like super tanks or whatever, or fluid tanks, or barrels or whatever, as well as I just don't want to have that many. I don't want to have huge buffers for everything. Like if you look at PBI here, I only have like 67 buckets of one of those precursors. So there we go. That is how my LCRs work. They're just level emitted, and items are just stored on just drives. They're not stored on filtered drives because I don't care about that stuff. They're just stored for fluid drives because I personally do not place unfiltered fluid drives on. I do not use unfiltered fluid drives. because I have a tendency to just blindly dump fluids into applied energistics. So that means if I use unfiltered fluid drives, eventually they all will just fill up, and it would be really annoying. Um, so I don't want to do that. Um, all right. I think that, let's see. I'm curious if that's everything. Yes, that is everything that I have so far. Wow. Still managed to talk for an hour. Holy moly. Uh, Trying to think. Oh, here's. I guess I'm just gonna talk about other random things now. Um, I hope you guys don't mind. Even if you did, I'd still yap anyway because that's what I like to do. I'm here to yap. So, about 10 days ago, it's been a year since I graduated from college, which is interesting. Um, I kind of didn't realize I'd be out of a job for this time when I graduated. I personally told my family it was gonna take me 6 months to a year to find a job. And it's been more than a year at this point. Still haven't gotten even a single call back from over 100 applications at this point. It really fucking sucks. So I don't know. Probably had a longer spiel. Um, I don't know if I'm gonna go through the whole longer spiel. I don't know. It's just really weird, right? Um, being out of college for a year. It just passed like in a blink. Like what the hell? Like especially these last couple of months have been going by really fast. I actually think it's like setting up a routine. When I was in college, I was never really able to set a routine. Just how varied my schedule was and how much work I had to do meant I wasn't going to bed at the same time every night. So I was never really able to set like a set routine, and that really kind of made things feel slower than they were. But now I have a pretty good routine that I like have been keeping for a couple of months at this point, and that's nice. I like it. I like being able to have a routine. I get up way earlier than I would normally, which is nice, and um, having a routine just makes me feel really good. But it does make it seem like the days pass a lot quicker, I think. Um, anyway, I guess that's probably it. I suppose I don't really want to talk too much about other things, I guess. Well, that's not true. I like to talk about other things, but this has been over an hour at this point, and that's probably enough for this week. I do like yapping, but my throat is sore, so talking for an hour straight puts some strain on the vocal cords, right? So I hope you guys have had a good week. My week has been pretty good. I've been getting back into writing with my lower desk. I've been writing a lot, and that's a lot of fun. I'm having a great time with that. So I hope you guys have had a good week, and I hope you guys have a good upcoming week, and I'll see you all again next week.